We have seen a pretty consistent trend over the past couple of months. It's hard to believe that new video game consoles have come out at all because the Nintendo Switch is continuing to dominate in 2020. Not only is it far outstripping PS5 and Xbox Series X sales, it's dominating the software sales charts as well. It seems to have a much brighter future ahead of it than its competition does. I do think we're past the point where PlayStation can reasonably expect to compete with Nintendo at all. I could rant about this all day. I might do a documentary about the rise and fall of PlayStation. But basically what happened is that PlayStation, being a much bigger company, was able to market to wider world audiences right out of the gate with their PlayStation brands, while Nintendo was still struggling in regions like the UK and parts of Europe and and things like that, and sort of use their vast resources and to control the industry, manipulate gaming journalists, force creators to develop exclusive titles for for PlayStation platforms, and try to drive Nintendo and Sega out of the console business. And it worked for Sega, but it didn't work for Nintendo. And now we're at the point where it looks like it's never going to happen with the rise of mobile and like other technological giants like entering the fray. Amazon is coming up with their service. Microsoft is dominating with Game Pass. Like, we are, I think, officially in the twilight years of the PlayStation Nation. This is the end. Aside from maybe a few exclusive titles that a couple of older people have been brainwashed since the 90s to think are amazing, right? Like the Naughty Dog fans, the Sucker Punch fans, the Ratchet and Clank fans, the Insomniac fans. Aside from like a bunch of people who have never really touched Nintendo, there's no real audience for PlayStation hardware. Nobody likes their games. Nobody plays their games. Nobody cares about them. And with their influence waning, with major controversies like The Last of Us Part 2, like The Last of Us Part 2, like the firing of constant beloved Japanese developers, the Kojimas, the Gravity Rush guys, basically all these known problems that PlayStation has constantly taking center stage. I don't think they're going to remain relevant. I think they're through. Like, they have nothing on the horizon for PS5. Squaresoft is dead. Konami is dead. Capcom is dead. Basically, all their heavy hitters that they traditionally have used to bludgeon Nintendo across the head with have become like extremely unpopular due to their extremely bad decisions over the past 20 years. Actually, longer, past 25 years. While Nintendo has basically replaced all of these developers with their own studios, it's been a gradual process to replace the JRPG people, to replace the Squaresofts with Monolith Soft and their smaller RPG handhelds, and the rise of Pokemon, which is now the most popular brand in the world. It's taken a while to start branching out into different genres, fighting games, shooters, online games. It's taken a while to reach the point where they can stop the competition so thoroughly, but they have reached it. As of right now, Nintendo is the dominant force in the gaming industry. Mobile games are in decline. They will continue dropping in popularity, I think, as China continues to ban non-Chinese developed apps. That's going to be a huge blow against mobile games, I think, with China doing that. With mobile games becoming less unpopular, with the death of PC gaming, with major AAA games like Cyberpunk not working months after launch. Like, it's not even like day one, just download a patch and I'll be fine anymore. No, we are in the point now where you have to feasibly wait like months for a product to work when you buy it, like after its release. You really? Fucking real? You really expect people to buy Cyberpunk? And I know there's a lot of people out there still damage controlling Cyberpunk, still trying to pretend it's salvageable, that it's somehow a great game, that it's being held back by the last generation of consoles. But in reality, the game just isn't that good. Like it's broken. It's a mess on PC. Like even my high-end gaming PC, it's not there. It's not a very good game, right? It is a complete piece of shit. And people need to wake up. You know what I mean? Like, people need to understand that you have been duped, right? You have been manipulated. You have been controlled. Since before you could even really think about what you were doing. You have been manipulated by a corrupt gaming press to think shit like Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid could ever compete with masterpieces like Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, right? Like you have been tricked into thinking Crash Bandicoot is a good mascot franchise with a stellar racing spin-off and a trilogy of excellent platforming games. You have been bamboozled into thinking Ratchet and Clank is somehow some great stellar IP with amazing storytelling. You have been lied to. Like The Last of Us Part 2. I do think this is The Last of Us Part 2 is not a real new thing. This is the thing that bothers me personally the most about The Last of Us Part 2, because I saw this coming a mile away, right? Like I knew this was coming years ago. Where isn't it interesting how the game journalists, the same ones who praise the original Last of Us, the original Uncharted, the Crash Bandicoot, the Jak and Daxter, the same people who have been building up Naughty Dog as being one of the best developers in the industry, are also shilling out for The Last of Us Part 2, calling it one of the best games of all time, like this really daring story that really pushed boundaries and really, oh man, it has a female lead that's never been done in any game ever. Like it's never happened. The same people who are downright trying to convince you that The Last of Us Part 2 is Game of the Year were the same people 20 years ago trying to tell you that Final Fantasy VII could never have worked on N64, that Squaresoft did a good thing in abandoning Nintendo, that Sega fell because of their own decisions rather than PlayStation just manipulating the market and driving them out of business. You are uninformed. Like, you are an idiot. Like, you are blind to what's actually been happening in the industry for the past several years. And thankfully, due to Nintendo being the pure bastion of Japanese superiority over video games, thankfully, due to their iconic brand and their great developers, you know people like Iwata, Miyamoto, all of these guys, right? Sakurai, all of these guys. Because of Yokoi, everyone, Yamauchi, I suppose, from the business side of things, all of these guys have spent the past 25 years preserving the medium that you love. You know what I mean? Like, these are the people who are fighting back against microtransactions, DLC, who were actively putting out games that actually fucking worked. You know what I mean? Who are still putting out games that actually fucking work. Like, who are still innovating, who are still doing new exciting things with their games and hardware. Like, the reason video games are so good right now is because of Nintendo. Like, if you're not playing on Nintendo, you're not playing the best games. Like, it's embarrassing. It's pathetic seeing you people scramble to try and defend Cyberpunk 2077, or try to pretend Devil May Cry 5 was good, or try to say that like, Witcher 3 is the best storyline in any game ever. Bullshit. Like, complete nonsense. Completely ridiculous. Nintendo has had... It's been a long road to get to this point. It's been a long while. It's been a long, hard fight. I myself have been heavily involved in exposing Pretendos for 5 years now, and it does feel like we're kind of at the point where these people don't really have any ground to stand on. I'm not really seeing a lot of people raging against Nintendo the way they used to, and I think if the pendulum ever switches back, if Nintendo makes I'm seeing this Nintendo make decisions that 5 years ago would have erupted into major controversies that don't really take off anywhere. Like the whole like Melee thing is probably the closest free Melee thing. That's probably the closest we've gotten to a real Nintendo controversy in the past several years, and it fizzled out the instant Nintendo announced a new character for Smash. It's these people have no momentum. Like, we're reaching the point where they just kind of get laughed at. You know what I mean? Like, nobody takes them seriously. They're not the primary group of people in the room talking about Nintendo anymore. Rather than a bunch of game journalists coming out and trying to tell you that, like, no, Nintendo is for kids, Nintendo's pathetic, you need to be playing on Xbox and PlayStation in order to be like the coolest kid in school. You have a bunch of gamers who only play on Nintendo consoles, like, coming out and talking about the games they love, like, you know, having people over playing Contra 3, right? Like, playing Smash, like, it's a magical experience. It actually feels normal, you know what I mean? Like, there's no real feeling that, like, wait a minute, Nintendo is supposed to suck. Like, you're not supposed to be playing Nintendo. It's people are just finally gravitating back towards the Nintendo consoles where they should have been all along, and I makes me very happy to see. I'm very glad to see that Nintendo is the best gaming company in the world, and they deserve every ounce of success that they get.